Okay, so I think we're live now, Paola.
Okay, so hi everyone, and welcome to our live stream. Today we are talking about one of the most fascinating parts of virtual reality, presence and immersion. These are the qualities that make virtual reality feel real. They are what allow us to forget about the physical world around us and feel like we have been transported somewhere else. Whether you are floating through space or walking through a forest, presence and immersion are what make those moments feel real. And there is a big part they are a big part of why virtual reality can be so powerful in areas like mental health, performance, and learning. Before we dive in, let me introduce myself. I'm Paola, a cognitive and behavioral neuroscientist here at Liminal. My work focuses on researching how immersive technologies, especially virtual reality, can support emotional well-being, learning, and therapeutic outcomes. I spend a lot of time studying how the brain and the body respond to different virtual environments and how we can use that knowledge to design experiences that are not only engaging but also backed by science to help people feel better, focus more easily, and even support mental health interventions. And joining me today is my colleague Adam, who works closely with me on creating these kind of experiences. Adam?
Yeah, thanks, Paola. It's great we've got this chance to share some of what we've been learning together over the years. My research is focused around how we can manipulate the various design elements we have access to within VR experiences so that we can essentially improve how we feel and perform in very specific targeted ways. So that includes things like how we can boost focus, how we can increase energy levels, how we can reduce stress, or how we can create moments of awe, for example. So I'm really looking forward to diving into some of those topics with you and everybody else today. It should be good.
Okay, thanks, Adam. So to get us all, sorry, all on the same page, cannot talk now. what do we what do we mean when we talk about immersion in VR? Do you mind explaining that in a bit more detail for us?
Yeah, sure. So with respect to the context of VR, immersion is essentially the extent to which our senses and our attention become engaged within a virtual world. So I think the most prominent example of this is with our visual system. When you put on a VR headset, essentially around two-thirds of your field of view becomes completely encapsulated by the virtual world. So then the remaining third is pretty much just blocked out by whatever headset you're using. In other words, the 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 physical world that you normally see around you completely gets blocked out, and that's replaced with a virtual one. Um, this is it's very, very much different to how we kind of experience and engage with virtual worlds outside of VR. One of the best examples would probably be, gaming, PC gaming, for example. In those cases, you're immersed, your visual field is immersed by, a 2D screen that you're staring at. I mean, if you're really up close next to that PC screen, it will take up a good portion of your field of view. But if I was to turn away from that PC screen, if I was to look behind me, for example, that virtual world is no longer there, really. I'm no longer immersed in it. It's out of my field of view. And that's completely different to, how we experience virtual worlds in VR. In that case, if I was to look in a different direction behind me, the virtual world's still there. I'm just seeing it from a different perspective now. So essentially, you become one with the environment as opposed to just kind of looking at it from afar. Um, so that's immersion through the kind of visual system. There's also we're very much immersed through audio as well in terms of like spatialized audio, for example. We're hearing sound sources from many different locations, which is very realistic, very engaging. Motion tracking is also excellent in VR. So um, the VR system always knows your location in a virtual space. Um, it's tracking that mainly from your headset movements and the movements of your controllers. It's very realistic in the sense that if I walk towards an object, the distance between me and the object gets smaller and the object appears larger. It's very much how we interact with worlds in real life. And what we're starting to see now is more and more advances in this space. So we're starting to see full body tracking motion capabilities, really precise hand tracking, eye tracking, the ability to measure and track facial expressions, for etc. is really going to open up an amazing way of connecting with virtual worlds on a deeper level.
Yeah. Well, if I remember correctly, you mentioned something about attention. What did you mean by that exactly? So the immersion also relates to attention, something like that.
Yeah, no, thanks for reminding me. So as I was just describing then, I could be fully immersed in terms of everything that I can see, everything that I can hear, could all be, imposed by the virtual world. That doesn't necessarily mean though that I'm also like my mind is in that place as well. I might be in the virtual world through my senses, but I might still be thinking about, that rumbling in my stomach as as we get closer to lunchtime. It could be, that work task that's still on my mind, that thing that I need to get done. So I might be immersed in terms of my senses, but my mind might still be somewhere else. And that's what a really compelling VR experience does. It immerses your senses and your attention as well. It's sort of akin to a flow state in many ways, where your entire attention, your entire experience is all absorbed in this one activity. I think that's probably one of the most powerful features of VR, in my opinion. Um, you know, our attention is normally so fragmented, between many different things, whether it's different devices, different activities, all the while speaking to different people and trying to work. Our attention's kind of all over the place and split between these different things. Um, VR kind of offers that ability to jump into a singular activity and give it your full focus, which is kind of rare these days.
Yep. 100%. So now that you explained immersion a little bit, and then how important is that for attention, how do you think how important is immersion per se for mental health or for health in general? Can you think of any examples?
Yeah, so a few examples come to mind for sure. I feel like in a really direct sense, or in the field of like, I guess a medical sense, immersion is extremely powerful for pain relief. That's because that ability to completely absorb all of your attention, all of your sensory inputs within a compelling VR experience. It directly reduces your capacity to attend to physical sensations like pain. So because of that, we started to see a wide integration of various VR apps, including Liminal, as a tool to kind of help patients manage their pain throughout various procedures or aftercare, which has been a really compelling use case for VR and immersion. There's also a very wide, extensive literature base in this field as well, which has shown some really promising findings. So I absolutely think that's a great, very obvious use case for immersion in health. It it also improves the accessibility of certain health promoting activities. If you think of things like exercise, meditation, getting out and spending more time in nature. I think we all know that we need to do these things more frequently to kind of improve our well-being and take care of ourselves. But there are a lot of common barriers to those sorts of activities. This was a big part of my PhD research. Actually, I was exploring how VR can potentially improve the accessibility of these sorts of activities. I think a lot of the problems that we'll often come across is, for example, whilst trying to meditate, trying to find a space that you feel comfortable in, a space where you're going to be, you know, free from distractions or potential distractions and disruptions. And, what about those constant reminders of work? If you try to meditate and you're in the room where you do all your work, that's where you get your emails, that's where your phone calls are happening. It's very hard to kind of separate from that and enter, a very the ideal kind of meditative state. So this actually came up as a recurring theme in my research. I actually thought it might be worth showing just a couple of quotes from some of our participants.
Yeah, sure.
Let me just get that up. Yeah, this was a recurring theme that I saw on quite a few occasions that people were really appreciating the ability of VR to create a controlled environment, which was a bit more conducive to relaxation. We collected some of this data. Basically, participants were using one of Liminal's focus experiences, Equilibrium. That is an interactive meditation-based experience which takes place in an abstract restorative environment utilizing fractal-like patterns. And the participants were kind of talking about their experience of meditating, relaxing in VR versus how that normally happens in real life for them. So this first participant, VR removes all the unpredictable elements that can ruin a real-world nature experience. It's predictable, which in itself is a relaxing notion. And I think kind of similarly to that one, since I can control most external distractions before starting, I'm almost relaxed to begin with, knowing that I can dive right in. So I think you can probably, see the commonalities between those two. Certainly, I think the predictive element is kind of provides, I think, comfort for people, knowing that something surprising isn't going to happen. I can just relax, knowing that everything's under my control, and that provides people with a lot of peace. In a little bit more detail, this other participant discusses a bunch of really interesting things. So I can get away from everything and everyone. It's hard to disconnect in the real world, especially when living in towns or cities. We always have to have a constant awareness, even in a nature setting. you just don't know who may be around. There are so many news reports of people being attacked, etc., whilst out running, walking, and or in parks. I can't fully let my senses go. It's also a time issue too. Traveling there and back in the VR environment with the press of a button, I'm a world away in seconds. So you can see, I think that's another really good example of how immersion provides people with that ability to, I guess, just step away temporarily from their physical environment, which might not always be conducive to, relaxation or focus or whatever it is that they're trying to engage with. So yeah, I thought that was just worth sharing since you asked about it. Um, without so on the topic of immersion, I don't think we can talk about immersion without talking about presence. Um, Without doubt, one of the most amazing things about immersion is its ability to create that feeling of presence. So I don't know, Paolo, did you maybe want to explain that in a bit more detail for everybody?
Yeah, sure. Um, Presence is that powerful feeling of really being there in the virtual space. When you start to lose awareness of your physical surroundings before your mind is so your mind is so engaged that you lose awareness of the physical surroundings, right? It's kind of like when you are deeply into a movie or to a book and forget everything around you, except that in VR, it's even more immersive. You are not just watching or reading, you are feeling it. That feeling of being transported emotionally and physically, that is what we define as presence. So here I just want to tell you when people normally ask me, what is virtual reality? I usually use this example. No? I ask them to imagine that they are in front of a TV playing a video game using a control. And then they put the control on top of the sofa, stand up, walk towards the TV, and go inside the TV. That is how virtual reality feels. You are no longer watching the video game, you are part of it. And in VR, your body may respond to a calm beach with a deep relaxation or tense up slightly if you are standing on the edge of a cliff, even though you are safe in your living room. So that's how I normally explain presence to
Yeah,
people.
I love that. It's quite a, I think before people have tried VR, that can be quite a hard concept to grasp because it's so different to how we, experience and well, how we, yeah, engage with virtual worlds or how we have done up until recently. So it's kind of a hard one for people to fully grasp. But then having the ability to put a headset on them and show them VR for the first time, it's normally a mind-blowing, amazing experience for most people, and it's very rewarding to be able to show people. Um, so there's lots of really interesting points there. But I guess what I'd be curious to know is, I'm pretty sure everybody would be curious to know is, what does presence actually feel like? And how can someone tell that they're actually truly experiencing it?
Yeah, that's a great question, Adam. I guess, well, presence is often described as the moment when you forget you are in a simulation, when the VR environment feels more real than the room you are standing in. And I remember that when I was doing my PhD, um, we were doing research with kids, and one of the participants that was a 6-year-old kid brought his sibling, um, and the sibling was 3 years old, and he really wanted to try the virtual reality technology. Also, we allowed him to kind of just put the headset on, and we observed what he was doing. No? And what he did was he immediately put the headset on, took it off, and said something like, in on these lines, like, "I am here, I am not here. I am here, and I'm not here." Right, which exemplifies like what I was just saying, like that feeling of being transported to a different environment. Um, Another example that I can think of is when I show liminal to people. There is an experience in the liminal platform that is related to traveling to the space. And when they are experiencing it using the headset, and then when the experience finishes, they normally say, "Oh, I'm back," right? Like that even that word saying "I'm back in Earth," like they actually truly felt that they were out of space.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that, oh, sorry, I think that will be really that here we will be really helpful if we can show the audience the video that I shared with you before.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Good idea. Get that up.
So before you start playing it, I
Hmm.
just want to kind of explain a little bit what they are going to be seeing. So here we will see some clips of different videos of different people using virtual reality in different using different games of virtual reality, and we will see how they behave in the environment. I don't want to say too much, but you will see how they forget about the external world immediately. It's going to be really obvious for everyone.
Cool.
Like if you want to
Yeah, awesome. Sounds good. All
just
right.
play. I forgot that the table is a virtual reality table. That one there. He forgot he was not playing basketball in a real court, for example. That's really clear. He thought that it was a table where he could put the controls, and there wasn't. This one as well, like this person is jumping on top of the bed. That doesn't exist. Sitting on a chair, that also doesn't exist in real life.
You're almost there. Come on. Okay. A little bit more.
No, babe, that's too high.
Okay.
I can't do it, man.
Now you have to walk back.
No, I can't.
No.
Babe, I can't.
Try getting up.
There's no way I'm getting up.
Do you need help?
Shouldn't laugh.
Please, babe, please help me. I can't do it. Oh my God!
Well, the internet is full of these videos.
Oh my God! Oh my God, babe.
I'll explain that one later on. That video of the plank over there.
Oh, what?
That one is really interesting. How he kind of hunched down, right, like to an object that was coming probably towards him. He moved his body in reaction to it.
Where's everybody? This looks like some type of a cave. It's a big round rug. Look at that. What the world? I can't believe it.
In complete awe.
What is it?
Exactly.
Ouch.
Yeah, that's another one, another example that they forget the real world. That's my favorite. Not because he's screaming, but you will see at the end. You'll see. He's probably playing a game where you are on a roller coaster. Okay. So that one, the last one, I think that's really useful to exemplify all of these terms, right? Like in that one, he is experiencing fear, but he doesn't realize that he can just remove the headset and will be out of the experience, right? So he continues with that. Even with us, we could think, why he didn't close the eyes? Well, because in real life, even if you close your eyes, you're still on the roller coaster, and it's not gonna end up, right? Like it's not gonna finish. So this is the best example that I could find. Like he's fully feeling present in that moment. So it's cognitive and emotionally connected to the experience.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. That is such a great example. Yeah, we're kind of sitting here watching him thinking, why don't you just take off the headset? You'd solve all of these problems, all of this stress you're having. But to be in his mind for a moment, it's all so real. The thought never occurs to him, oh, I'll just take the headset off, because that's not real life. In real life, we don't, yeah, as you say, we can't just close our eyes and it's gone. We can't just take the headset off. So yeah, it's a really good example of how real it can feel. What was quite noticeable for me throughout the video in some of those clips was that, the graphics quality wasn't, exactly always amazing. So can presence still happen then in, these simpler or lower quality VR environments as well?
Absolutely. You don't always need high-end visuals to feel present. It happens because our brain is incredibly plastic and has evolved to construct its own version of reality based on sensory input. So basically, our brain doesn't need fully detailed world to believe it's real. It just needs the right combination of clinically significant clues to interpret a situation and believe it's actually happening. And actually, like uh, considering that, for example, 80% of how we perceive our surroundings relies on vision, it's not surprising that we can think that the brain believe that it's in that virtual environment if the virtual environment looks similar to reality, right? Like it has those significant cues that are similar to reality. And it's not only kind of the visual part, it's kind of the sound, the motion, like all what makes presence and immersion what they are, right? In one of the videos we just watched, we saw someone crawling on a wooden plank, for example, asking for help, completely immersed in that experience and asking, like feeling really nervous and asking for help. He was playing in a game called the Richie's Plank Experience, and in this game users step into a virtual lift that ascends to the 50th floor. When the door opens, all they can see is a plank suspended in the middle of the air, and they are instructed to walk across it. As you saw in the video, many people feel genuinely fear, right? Like they start to feel like stress when they see this plank and that they need to walk. Even though the environment looks a bit cartoonish, and this is because our brain doesn't need the image to be extremely real. You just need, as I said, the cues, right? And in this game, they did really well. So as soon as the lift opens, you hear the sound of the air. When you start walking on top of the plank, you hear the cracking of the sound of the wood, right? So that also makes you think you are in a real environment. So that's when presence takes over and you are like fully immersed in the environment.
Yeah, love that. So why would you say presence actually matters then? Like what does it do for us?
Well, I would say that presence is powerful because it anchors us in the moment. So when you are present in VR, your brain believes or behaves, better to say, your brain not only believes, but your brain behaves similarly to when you are meditating. Less self-talk, more focus, and often greater emotional response. This can be incredibly useful in therapy, education, or even just stress relief experiences. The more present you are, the more impact the experience can have on you.
Yeah, awesome. Cool. I feel like that gives us a really good overview of both the concepts of immersion and presence. I thought whilst we were talking about these two topics, it might be worth also talking about some of the design considerations we factor in. I guess whilst trying to maximize presence and immersion, most particularly, I guess, whilst designing these this library of experiences that we use or that we have on the Liminal platform. So I guess it's important to mention when we're talking about immersive design, we're not just talking about high-tech headsets or really high-end flashy graphics. Immersion is created through a series of thoughtful layers. It's the soundscapes, it's the pacing, the lighting, the various spatial cues. So it's all about creating an environment where users feel like they're actually inside that experience and that virtual world, as opposed to just being a passive observer watching from afar. It's a huge difference there. Importantly, something to always consider, I always find interesting, that in terms of the visuals, probably the most important thing is actually the latency of the experience. Any drop at all in frame rate where we start to see any kind of stuttering or lagging behind, this causes some really significant problems. It's the sort of thing that's uncomfortable and can induce motion sickness, and also it instantly breaks that feeling of presence and immersion. So in to an extent, you could place latency as a higher priority above graphical fidelity. As you mentioned already, we don't always need like super high-end realistic graphics for VR to feel real. Latency, on the other hand, though, is extremely important. Studies have shown this by experimentally manipulating the frame rate of VR experiences, essentially showing that high latency, experience with slower performance create lower feelings of presence, and they reduce the emotional impact of the experience. This was actually the case in a study where participants experienced a stressful environment in VR. When latency levels were low, things were running smoothly and fast, participants were experiencing significant increases in their heart rate. Like everything they were seeing, experiencing was very real, and it had a direct increase on their physiological arousal. They were notably stressed. But if you compared that against the participants experiencing the exact same environment, but with a lower frame rate, poorer performance, those same effects, those same emotional effects just weren't there. So it directly impacts how we respond to a virtual environment in VR. Yeah, I don't know. Is there anything else you'd say is like, really important on the design side of things, Paola?
Yeah, I think what you just mentioned is all about technical immersion. Like I agree with the latency. And for those listeners that don't know about the concept of latency, I would like to kind of explain a little bit more, which
Yeah.
is kind of like when you normally explain it to people like when you are in a video call with someone, and then there is this discrepancy between when you are talking and what you are seeing, the person moving their lips, or so that could be related to latency, and it's something like that. What happens in virtual reality, right? Like it's the movement is not right, so your brain start noticing these discrepancies, and then it's kind of immediately pulling it out of
Mm.
this is not real. This is something else, right?
Yeah, I think we had a couple of examples of low latency at the start of this call. I'll just apologize to anybody who picks up on those.
That's true. We also had those examples in this call. So that's definitely latency, and then that is part of the technical kind of side of the immersion. No? So while technical immersion pulls us into a virtual world, it's emotional immersion that truly connects us to the experience. Like it's the visceral part of the experience. Um, is what makes a moment in virtual reality stick with us, shift our mood, or even change how we feel, and how do we remember those experiences. When we design for emotional immersion, we start with the narrative, for example. Even if it's subtle, um, we think of this like what story is the user stepping into? What kind of emotional journey are we inviting them on? So tone is also crucial. Um, are we evoking calm, curiosity, or are we evoking wonder? That emotional tone becomes the backdrop of the entire experience. And for example, in our calm experiences at Liminal, we use soft lighting, gentle movements, warm color palettes, and carefully designed audio, um, like binaural beats or natural sounds, to guide the nervous system into a more relaxed state. It's not just about aesthetics, it's about purposely shaping how people feel. And that's when presence becomes truly meaningful, or presence and immersion.
Yeah, so true. I think that emotional element is really what ensures we're well and truly engaged in the virtual world. I'd say that that also tends to be one of the, the main things we remember as well. How was it you felt during the experience? Was it a bit lackluster and boring, or did you notice a really, compelling shift in your anxiety levels, for example? Did you feel calmer and more at peace? Um, that's the sort of thing that really sticks with people. It's the sort of thing that,
Yeah,
people always remember for sure. Yeah, it's
yeah.
awesome.
That what you mentioned made me remember that. Yeah, when I also allow people to try the experiences of liminal, and then when they take off the headset, the first thing that they say is something related to either being back from the other world
Mm,
in coming back to reality, or what they felt, right? Like it's like, oh my god, that was amazing, I had goosebumps, or oh my god, I felt so in peace. So it's
mm.
either or the other one, right? One of the other or the other one. So yeah, it all exemplify immersion and presence. So Adam, what do you think if we start wrapping up this session with maybe a few takeaways? If you want, I can start with that.
Yeah, let's
For
do it.
me, I guess for me, um, presence and immersion are the building blocks of emotionally powerful virtual reality, as I already mentioned. I don't think I need more examples for that. And the other one will be presence and immersion helps us feel, learn, and connect more deeply with the virtual reality experience, which are really important.
I think those latency issues have come back just temporarily, but we'll carry on. I think we're all back now again. That's all good. Yeah, no, I completely agree with those 2 points. For me, if I was to add to that, um, I think it's really important that we are striving to find ways of immersing ourselves fully in different things. Whether that's the work we're doing, whether it's exercise, health and well-being practices, or whether it's the things that we do for fun. Whatever it is, giving it your full attention is really gonna help generate the most rewards. And I think importantly, VR has the potential to bring that kind of deep engagement back into our everyday lives in a way that's it's become much more difficult in recent years. So yeah, I guess a few takeaway points there. Maybe it's worth just kind of wrapping up now. And just before doing that, I guess I wanted to invite people to, I guess firstly, try out Liminal for themselves so they can experience presence and immersion in lots of different ways, whether that's through gameplay, meditations, exploration, or just simply chilling out in a relaxed space. This, I guess, is just the first in a series where me and Paola are discussing a range of different topics, but we might explore a few different avenues. The science behind the different liminal categories, for example, or we might consider doing some deep dives into the research behind some of our experiences, and more. And yeah, looking forward to seeing how that progresses. For now, though, I guess, see you all next time.
Thanks for listening, and yeah, see you next time.